Someone's, no need to name names, finger may have just slipped on the Death Star's primary ignition button while our glorious leader Palpatine was down on that planet there. Who's going to lead our glorious empire now? These intros are getting more heavy-handed all the time. That's right, the Emperor is dead. Killed in a freak accident that you can't blame on anyone really, so no need to investigate it. But now we need a successor to rule this empire. Who out of those with the potential to seize the throne would make for the best emperor if Palpatine did decide to kick the bucket at this unspecified time in his reign? Who would have the military skills to rein in the warlords, the charisma and cunning to navigate the politics, or the intelligence and strength of character to put them in their place? Who could make the Empire stronger and perhaps even a little fairer than it was under Palpatine? That's what we aim to explore today. Legends or canon? We'll pluck from both, but we'll be sure to specify which, if it's important to make that distinction. Don't forget to like, hype, and subscribe, and that'll do it for the rambling. Coming in at number 5 on the bottom of the pile, and very much an if there's really no one else available type of option, it's Mas Amedda. Despite being in last place, this Chagrian does admittedly have a lot of traits that make for an effective leader, and even a few some of the higher picks actually lack. He's intelligent and a masterful administrator, ruthless, cunning, and remarkably politically savvy. You'd actually be surprised at how much of a role this guy played in getting Palpatine into position to seize power in both canons.
This is a crisis. The Senate must vote the Chancellor emergency power.
He functioned effectively as the heel in a good cop, bad cop dynamic with the future Emperor, often bullying and gaslighting other politicians in Palpatine's stead, so the Lord of the Sith could maintain a sort of air of benevolence to him.
I agree with Satine.
Well, finally.
It proves what I've been saying all along. Death Watch is out of control. The Republic must step in and help.
Wait, I didn't...
You can't keep them reined in, obviously.
He's slimy, but he understood how to play the Game of Thrones. Short circuit, wrong channel. I mean the Galactic Senate, and knew how to get things done, or in some cases, not done. Where he falls down, and what relegates him to bottom candidates, is his almost complete lack of 3 very important traits needed to be an effective commander-in-chief of an authoritarian regime like the Empire. Charisma, military competence, and ideological conviction. Having the full set is ideal, but you need at least one of these to at least have a chance of staying in power. When it comes to the charisma needed to rule a galactic scale empire, you've either got it or you haven't. And this guy is in the camp of hasn't.
I love democracy.
This might be compensated for if you've got some top-notch military skills and have earned the respect of a good portion of your subordinates, but this guy doesn't have that either. Now, you might be able to get past even this if you can inspire others with your firm, unflinching passion for your cause with your rhetoric. But furthermore, Mas Amedda just didn't really have any staunch conviction in any particular political ideology. He just liked to be near the top of the ladder of whatever happened to be the dominant political force at the time, and was happy to alter his course to match the direction the wind was blowing. Evidenced with his not even questioning Palpatine's reasoning behind why the long-standing Democratic Republic needed to make way for an authoritarian empire.
Order!
Ideological conviction doesn't necessarily have to be completely unbendable in a political system like the Empire's, but by golly, there does need to be a point where you draw a line in the sand and put your foot down for what you stand for. Mas Amedda wasn't capable of any of this, and that's why when he did take the position of Emperor in canon, he was immediately, and I mean immediately, usurped by the military, and why in Legends, after Palpatine had consolidated his rule and secured his means of immortality, was relegated from next in line to a glorified archaeologist. Don't get me wrong, if you're a leader of an authoritarian empire, you absolutely want this guy whispering advice in your ear. But he's better at being the shadow rather than the body that casts it. Tom, why are you trying to contact Imperial Senior Command? You can't prove anything! Speaking of Imperial Senior Command, next in line for taking a bid at that throne at number 4, it's Grand Moff Tarkin. One of the few beings in the entire galaxy who actually had the cunning, influence, and ambition to potentially lead a successful coup against Sidious in earnest, were it not for his staunch loyalty. But in many ways, Tarkin is just Palpatine light. And this makes a lot of sense. He was groomed by Sheev from a very young age to function as a ruler of sorts for the Empire when Palpy wanted to go on holidays, whether that was to Sith worlds to find knowledge, or taking a spa day to study and reflect on the higher mysteries of the dark side.
I stand by my principles, no matter what. Besides, I needn't worry about my career. I've fallen into favor with the Chancellor. He shall support me.
Oh?
As such, he's got a well-rounded skill set for taking charge of the Galactic Empire. He's charismatic, intelligent, and fostered his skills in both politics as the governor of Iridu and the military with the Republic Navy as an officer, giving him a firm grasp over both arenas of leadership. The guy was also not one for friendship, making him just as pragmatically ruthless regarding those on his team as he was with those who stood in opposition to the Empire.
We stand here amidst my achievement, not yours!
I'm afraid the recent security breaches have laid bare your inadequacies as a military director.
So, gaining his trust and usurping him, quite tricky. But we really do mean it when we say he's Palpatine light. He's got all of Sheev's strengths as a leader, but also all of the exact same weaknesses, but without the Force to compensate for it. He was overconfident, tyrannical, egotistical, and pretty damn sadistic. This is a guy that casually okayed a genocide of billions just because he wanted to test out the Empire's new toy, and genuinely believed that extreme fear and terror were the best ways to keep people in line over carefully curated order and security through Force like our higher picks. It's telling that the Empire's fear doctrine is named after this guy. For Tarkin, it wasn't about control for the sake of peace and order, it was control for the sake of power and domination. Just like Palpatine. And because of this, he'd likely not last much longer than Palpatine himself did. Fear and terror are the catalysts of defiance and courage. Leia did legitimately have a point when she said this.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
Must scrub records, cover tracks, frame Tom, we're back. And moving on to number 3, we take our first step into candidates that might actually be a bit of an improvement over Palpatine's regime, and claiming the middle ground, because he doesn't understand the high ground, it's Darth Vader. This spot does, however, require us to make a canon distinction and say that we only think this about the Legends version of Vader, because canon Vader is a brutal, sadistic a-hole who seems to demonstrate immense cruelty and sadism on par with Sidious himself. Legends Vader is still a big meanie pants, but he's not, oh that kid's annoying me, let's just break his neck for no reason levels of meanie pants. Vader is the middle-of-the-road candidate. He'd certainly be an improvement over the spineless Mas Amedda and the sadistic egomaniacs of Tarkin and even Palpatine himself, but there are also some wide holes in his game that make him less than ideal. Unlike Palpatine and Tarkin, it was a well-established trait in almost all depictions of Legends Vader that he did not kill for amusement or just because he could, but only when it served a valuable purpose. In other words, don't piss him off or fail him, and he won't give your neck a little invisible hug. Which, while not inspiring much confidence in him as an emperor, is still a step up from the two guys who would do it just for fun. To drive the point home, while Vader was quite happy to employ fear and terror on a personal level, he did not think it was all that useful as a tool of mass suppression and political control. Perhaps best demonstrated in his open distaste of projects like the Death Star and their use.
Its power to create problems has certainly been confirmed. A city destroyed. An Imperial facility openly attacked.
Just to be clear though, before we give him too much praise, Vader did not bat an eyelash at Alderaan's destruction or feel any regret or remorse for those on world as he watched it go boom. It's more a case of him thinking such superweapons were vanity projects and a dumb waste of resources, and mass murder for the sake of it being just a bit pointless. So, how would Vader rule? What did Vader want? Honestly, besides personal power, Anakin wanted order and stability, and after his fall, came to feel dictatorship was legitimately the best way to get it. All Vader wanted after he'd become powerful enough to supplant his master was to use his rule to bring peace and justice to the galaxy after watching it suffocate under the bureaucratic red tape of the Republic.
The Jedi Code prevents them from going far enough to achieve victory, to do whatever it takes to win. The very reason why peacekeepers should not be leading a war. Have I offended you?
I've also found that we sometimes fall short of victory because of our methods.
The problem is, when we say peace and justice, what we really mean is what Vader viewed as peace and justice. Which, by the time he'd been encased in that suit and had some time to stew in his self-hatred and resentment, he'd developed a pretty twisted and warped view of. As a ruler, Anakin at his heart was a problem solver and was always looking for the most direct and efficient way to get a job done, and was very much a lead-by-example sort of guy, so some points there. I think it's sometimes overlooked that while Tarkin arrogantly kicked back thinking everything was fine and dandy, Vader was the one who actually took the initiative and almost prevented the destruction of the first Death Star. If allowed to do things his way, with no one to answer to, there might be less rebellion under Vader, as he'd just quash it in the most effective manner available. But this trait is a double-edged sword. Vader just doesn't have the patience or tact or even basic social skills for that matter to ebb and flow in day-to-day politics where issues would warrant deliberation, likely removing or straight up killing anyone who disagreed with his way of doing things, forcing him to rule with an iron fist. This would make Vader a fantastic emperor if the Empire employed the ancient Roman system of dictatorship, by which the elected officials stayed in office until the problem was dealt with and then resigned, but he's not cut out for a permanent posting. But combining his blunt, iron-fisted rule with his penchant for killing anyone who fails him, regardless of fault, eventually the unstrangled higher-ups are going to try and take him down. I'm sorry, but better than crap doesn't mean good. Moving on. And since we used an exclusively Legends character, let's balance that back out with an exclusively canon one. And at number 2, just missing out off that top spot, is Rae Sloane. And Tom thought he was hard done by having to stretch 2 minutes of mountain footage across long videos. But to be nice to him, since he will be going to a maximum security Imperial prison once I plant this fake evidence, I'll make this the lightning pick. Always looking out for you, buddy. A criminally obscure and underrepresented character, to say how important she is in the new canon. This woman is hugely responsible for the survival of the Empire post-Return of the Jedi, and had a big hand in the birth of the First Order, and was technically its first leader before Snoke took the reins. She's incredibly intelligent, an exceptional military commander, very honorable and charismatic, but also a very cunning and shrewd politician, so like Tarkin, difficult to dupe and usurp, and a strong believer in the Empire as the galaxy's best chance for peace and order. All the markings of a great empress. But what I really like about her is her consistent willingness to question the Empire's ways, and her acknowledgement of its flaws, such as its ingrained xenophobia, as well as her fair treatment of her enemies, showing a compassionate leadership style not yet seen in the other candidates, and the first one who might actually try to make life in the Empire better for many of its citizens. Her problem, and it's a big one, enough that it's knocked her off the top spot, is she kind of lacks the gumption to seize power in totality. She kind of had her chance to do so, not once, but twice, and in both instances favored hiding and contingencies and giving ground to others over stepping up and staking a legitimate claim as Empress. I'd like to prattle on longer, guys, but Tom is giving me that side-eye that says if he has to loop this clip any longer, he'll sell me to Watto for scrap. So, if Sloane, the on-paper perfect candidate, hasn't taken it, who then has masterfully positioned themselves at number 1? Of course, it's the guy who's likely to rally what she left behind and actually have a genuine Bosch at filling Palpy's shoes as leader of the Empire in the new canon. It's the big blue boy, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
What was first just a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us.
Though most newer Star Wars fans probably know him from Rebels and Ahsoka, it's important to acknowledge both shows are aimed at kids, and both were headed by Filoni. And while I do want to give him credit for consulting Zahn both times he wanted to use Thrawn, only the most die-hard fanboys would deny Filoni doesn't quite have a grasp over Thrawn's complexity, and both instances are a rather simplistic, villainous take on the character. To really understand Thrawn, you have to read both canon's novels. I'm sorry, this is the way. I've heard it said Thrawn is very nearly within the boundaries of an anti-hero. While I personally wouldn't go that far, this is still someone who believes oppression, brutality, and straight-up war crimes have their uses. I definitely think you could make a strong case for anti-villain. That is to say, he's compared more favorably to characters like Magneto and Thanos, who do bad things with greater good intentions, rather than, say, Batman or the Punisher, who do good things, but with questionable methods. Especially in the new canon. It's because of these slightly redeeming and somewhat noble intentions, combined with his outright competence, that make him the best choice for our new Emperor. All hail Emperor Thrawn! We often forget that in the original Thrawn trilogy, he was the underdog, and even with scant and finite resources, he still brought the New Republic to its knees. Imagine what he could do with the backing of the entire Empire. But what makes him so effective? Thrawn is charismatic, intelligent, and even-handed, but also ruthless, logical, and pragmatic, but without ever stepping into the territory of being needlessly cruel or sadistic. That is the balance you want in a leader of an authoritarian state. Even his most brutal actions are always done with purpose, a great example being his war crime bombing of Lothal. This wasn't done to punish the civilians or some kind of petty retribution for their resistance like it would be with tyrannical Tarkin. To Thrawn, it was simply the best way to draw out the rebels by exploiting their compassion. And in dealing with the rebels, he could get Lothal back to work building TIE defenders, which he saw as crucial for his true goal, which in both canons is to prepare the galaxy as a whole for extragalactic invasions of apocalyptic scale. Man's always looking at the big picture, a great trait in a state leader. What he lacks in conventional political savvy, he more than makes up for with his pure strategic brilliance and his general skills in leadership, mainly in his ability to inspire those under him. What makes Thrawn a prime candidate for Emperor is his willingness to earn respect rather than take it by force. Unless, of course, you're an ogre. He rewards initiative, creativity, and competence, and unlike Vader, isn't killing subordinates left, right, and center when they fail. He forgives mistakes made in earnest, only punishing errors if you try to duck taking accountability for them. People often follow Thrawn because they want to, not because he makes them. I mean, his followers were willing to go through the ball ache of jumping to another freaking galaxy just to retrieve him. That's some serious dedication and loyalty he's inspired. That being said, he's not perfect, and like every candidate on this list, has flaws. It's almost like those with the potential to be leaders of totalitarian regimes that can't themselves be capable in totality or something. Ironic. Use the Palpatine clip here, Tom buddy. No. Like Vader, Thrawn can navigate the grand stage of politics by leveraging military brilliance, but like Darth, he's got crappy social skills and is not one for the intricacies of a political landscape. And even though he's less iron-fisted in his leadership style, Thrawn, like Vader, would likely just cull those directly responsible for political corruption rather than addressing the root causes, which could leave him open to dissent and plots of usurpation from the tension this causes. But where you can make his lack of social skills work for him is in how he views people. Thrawn, with 2 or 3 exceptions, who really had to earn it through persistent displays of unwavering loyalty and competence, is not one for friends, and views everyone as assets and tools and makes decisions based on logic. Because of this, you've got a better chance of Palpatine joining the Jedi than you have of sweet-talking this guy or pulling the wool over his eyes.
Did you really believe that holding a parade would hide the fact that you destroyed our entire fuel supply?
There is also the issue that Thrawn isn't human in a system of government that openly despises aliens. Thrawn's got a lot of prejudice to maneuver through and stamp out before things would settle back down. Especially so when you factor in he's incredibly loyal to his own people's government, the Chiss Ascendancy. In fact, this divided loyalty might be an outright deal-breaker in his suitability to rule for some, unless he brought the Chiss Ascendancy into the Empire's fold in earnest. On the other side of the coin, though, you can argue that as an alien himself and a pragmatist, he would introduce reforms to make the Empire less xenophobic. So, positive there, I suppose. If Palpatine is Hitler, Thrawn is Napoleon. Not pure evil, some noble intent, but still not a great guy. Make no mistake, Thrawn's empire is still an authoritarian military dictatorship that uses force to maintain peace. But it's one with a backbone built on the ideals of meritocracy, greater tolerance, and efficiency, and has a legitimate interest in protecting its citizens from big-picture threats. And even though it would likely collapse, as all empires tend to do, Thrawn's empire might actually outlive him and stand the test of time. For Thrawn and Sloane, personal power was never important, and that's what makes them a cut above the others. I'm not trying to say Thrawn isn't a bad guy, by the way, but like Sloane, he's among the best of a bad bunch. Both Thrawn and Sloane's galactic empires aren't fair, not by a long shot. But they're the fairest it's going to get, without turning into something else entirely.
Long live the Empire.
For the Republic! And that's our take. Who do you think would make for the best Emperor of the Galactic Empire now that Palpatine's dead and Tom is going to prison for his assassination? Let us know down in the comments.